Hello, I'm Jason Gant, the pastor of kids and families here at Church of the Resurrection. I'm so glad you've tuned in to the With Parents podcast, where we hope to inspire, to equip, to engage your family in faith growth. And today we have a special guest, an opportunity to learn about amazing ministry happening right here in the Kansas City area through our partner schools. We have multiple partner schools where we give kids food for the weekends, where we share bookmobile books that they get to take home, where we help them get a bed for a good sleep and a bedtime routine, where we can volunteer and tutor and help make a difference, because by third grade, you might not know this, but that's how they decide how many cells are going to be built in future prisons. By the literacy rate at third grade, we want to make a difference there, and you can help us make a difference. You're going to hear from Ann Carter, who is a part of the leadership of this ministry. It takes a village to do this ministry, but she has such a passion. She's the champion for this ministry. I can't wait for you to meet her. Let's get on it. So Ann, we're so glad to have you today. Tell us why you're passionate about this ministry with partner schools here at Resurrection.
I think the partner school ministry is able to make all kinds of wonderful changes throughout the Kansas City metro area. I love that we partner with different schools in different school districts, in different socioeconomic areas. And I love that we're able to impact the kids on so many levels. We can give them a warm coat. We can give them a clean uniform. We can give them food, books, whatever it is. I just think that we are really making a difference in the lives of kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how many partner schools do we have now? We have 6 locations at Resurrection, and each of our locations is intentionally engaged in different schools, but a total number of how many schools?
So we have 9 partner schools. They range from Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, school districts, Olathe School District, and Shawnee Mission School District. We impact over 3,600 kids and over 600 staff people.
Okay, that's amazing. And all of these schools have a very high either free or reduced lunch rate. These are kids that are in a place of need. But it's not just about charity. It's more than that, isn't it? And that's part of what we've learned.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
It's about relationships.
Yes.
And through COVID, we learned that it was not only about relationships with the kids, but relationships with the teachers and the staff. Yes. Because once COVID began, the teachers really became stressed. And we learned that we had to not only support the kids, we had to support the teachers and the staff.
Well, and that's important to say. So before we even get into the history of this, let's just talk about the newest element, which you're calling Bless the Teacher. Which I think is very cool.
Yes, it's been around probably 5 or 6 years. And so what we do is we pair a staff person. We call it Bless the Teacher because Bless the Staff is kind of vague.
Sure.
But it can be anyone from the principal to a custodian to a cafeteria worker to a kindergarten teacher to a librarian. We partner a volunteer with that person. Our volunteer doesn't ever have to leave their home. They write a little note of support or use a pre-printed note, and they send it to the school with the teacher's name on the front once a month.
So that's really cool. Yeah. Really simple. That's an entry point volunteer place. And that you're going to hear throughout this interview, 6 or 7 really, depending on how deep you might want to go, ways to get involved in the partner school ministry. But let's go back. Let's go back to something we called Bless the School, which was like a summer campaign, like a summer project, right?
Right.
Well, tell us what it was intent to do.
So the first Bless the School was called Paint the School, and the purpose was to go in and paint and brighten the schools. Some of the schools we went into had large areas of peeling paint, areas where the plaster had collapsed, flooring that was buckled in the gym. I mean, all kinds of challenges. We thought we were just getting into paint, but then we very quickly found out that there was a lot more that needed to be done. Right. And so we painted the school. It looked awesome, but we missed that relational aspect.
Yeah.
And that's what we found. I think Bless the School is now about 15 years old. That's what we found in the end to be the most important piece, was the relational aspect, to let the school and the principals know that we're there to support them and in whatever they need, not just paint.
Well, that's such an important thing to say because there's this missional idea where we go and we partner with someone in need and we do something that we perceive they need and we walk away and the we feels fulfilled, like we've done God's work. But maybe we projected our hope or what we believe they needed onto them. And there's an interesting story that happened one day when you just happened to be in the front office of one of the schools, when I know you were already thinking about how to go deeper in this ministry. Tell that story because I think it's really powerful.
So one day when I was at Wendell Phillips, which was our first partner school, the principal happened to mention that they needed an ice maker. That was back in the day when we still used ice on the kids' boo-boos, and they needed ice for social functions they were happening. So I said, I think we can do that for you. And so we came up with a used ice maker. We installed the ice maker, and it worked great for a little while, and then the compressor went out. And the principal didn't want to ask us for another thing, so they uninstalled the ice maker and threw it away. We could very easily have repaired the ice maker for them, but we didn't have a person in place at that school who was there every week or several times every week to identify the things that needed to be done.
To build the relationship so it was an equal partnership.
Exactly.
So somebody in that role wouldn't feel like, I'm not going to call the church that gave us this great gift and tell them it's broken, right?
Exactly.
So how do you build a relationship where there's an equal partnership in bringing the best to the kids in the community? And that's a simple learning in just that story alone. And then there was another story that helped us move into a weekend ministry that maybe nobody had really yet envisioned. Tell that story.
So I just happened to be at Troost Elementary one year in the office waiting for the principal, and a little boy, he was probably about 7 years old, and his little sister, maybe a kindergartner, came into the office and asked the secretary if she had something they could eat. And she said, this was before school served breakfast. Now they serve breakfast, and most of the time they have an additional stash of breakfasts for the kids who come in late for some reason or another. Right. But this was before that time. And the secretary said to the little boy, did you not have breakfast this morning? And he said, we haven't eaten since I left school on Friday.
Wow.
And you could just feel everybody's heart drop when he said that. And so, of course, they quickly scurried to get food. But we came back to Resurrection with that story and said, this is an immense need, and this is something that we really need to fill. And so now every Wednesday in the basement at Leawood campus, and I think other campuses do theirs too in different locations, we fill backpacks with the food that a family would need for 2 protein-based meals for the weekend.
Right.
Not snacks.
Not snacks, but protein-based meals for the whole household.
Exactly.
We're truly living into Jesus' call to feed the hungry. And that's awesome. And so it's like another learning. So first we learned, okay, we've got to build a relationship. So there's an equal partnership. So there's mutual respect. So there's an open conversation that can happen about need. Then, oh my gosh, here's the real need. I would say that's a Holy Spirit moment that you were attuned to in that moment, in that day, in that office when that little boy came in hungry. And so that gave us a clear, okay, this is where God needs us to go now. We need to feed the children. So that started the backpacks ministry, which, by the way, they're no longer in, well, I don't want to give that away because there's an important learning here. So tell us again, the next progression, what did we learn? Because it started as a backpack ministry.
Right.
Where they would get their backpacks on Friday to go home with all the food. And then what did we learn?
So every child, I think the first year we did it, every kid got a navy blue backpack. And then they started color coding the backpacks by grade, but they were all very generic looking backpacks. And we learned that the older kids, especially the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, were embarrassed to take that backpack on the bus, or embarrassed to walk home with that backpack because it identified them as not having enough resources for their family. So we learned that we need to put that food in a Walmart plastic bag and put it inside the kids' backpack instead of strapping them with a backpack that identified them as being poor.
This is so important because it's about dignity. And
exactly.
It's about the felt need and how to appropriately fulfill that need where no one feels shameful and no one feels embarrassed. And and they only feel love and care and support. And so we learned again. And this is why I wanted to bring this up, because these are such great ministries, but we keep learning. We're learning something new every year that develops, like the beds ministry, for example, right? So first we looked at food, and then tell us about these progressions just are amazing. They don't stop. So we've got the hunger ministry going. We've got the partnership with the principal and the relational, what we call liaisons, that are volunteers who serve as a liaison, the partner with the church and the principal. And then now we learned about the need for beds. Tell us about that.
So the beds ministry was derived, and there are several ministries over the Kansas City area, but the beds ministry was derived from knowing through the relationship we had with the schools that a lot of these kids did not have a bed to sleep in. So we developed the beds program. I shouldn't say we. There was a group that developed the beds program, and they take a group of volunteers into the school, and they talk about bedtime routines, about going to bed, about taking a bath, about reading a story, about all of that, and lost my train of thought. And
It's okay.
The each child receives a little kind of placard that they fill out, and it says, I sleep in my own bed, I sleep with someone else, I have my own room. And most of the time we need to interpret these, because they might check all three of them, or they might check none of them.
Right.
So we talk to the kids, we read them a story, we provide them with a snack, we talk about brushing their teeth and all of that. And then we identify the kids that we think, from what they've said, need a bed.
In like a safe way, so they don't feel embarrassed.
Exactly. A one-on-one.
It's a way to really talk about it.
Exactly.
In a safe place.
And then each student in that school receives a blanket throw, a pair of socks, a teddy bear, or some kind of stuffed animal, and a book to read at night. Toothbrush, toothpaste, to reinforce those routines, those bedtime routines. And if the social worker works with our volunteers, and a few weeks later there'll be a beds party in the parking lot at the school where the families can come pick up their beds.
That's awesome.
And we have inflatable beds for kids who are in transient situations where they might spend a few nights with mom, a few nights with dad, whatever.
Sure. And you had mentioned to me, here's a practical need. Practical need is we need more bed slats. Right?
You do
right
need
now,
bed slats,
need
yeah.
bed slats. And so if you're a person who likes to make things, you can get connected with the ministry and make bed slats and cut those boards, maybe an Eagle Scout project
Yes.
out there. So,
Yes.
These are not just, hey, sign up and months from now, there are things you could get involved with right now. And
Exactly.
that's part of why I want to tell you this story, because first of all, it's just a really powerful story, and that how God has moved us through making an impact in our community, because we just believe that's imperative to be the church. If we're not making an impact in our community, if we're not, as our senior pastor, Adam Hamilton says, if the Kansas City area doesn't look different after 50 years of our church being involved in this community, have we been a church or have we been a Christian club? And that's a really important, gut-wrenching question for us to ask every day. Are we being the hands and feet and the voice and heart of Jesus to our neighbors, to love our neighbor, to care for others?
Well, and there's no doubt that God puts us in the right place at the right time. And we don't know that we're going to be in the right place at the right time until we get there.
Right. That's well said. So we kind of had this realization of like, we've got to get some relationships going. We need to help feed kids over the weekend so that they have food, so their nutrition is fueling their mind. And then we also are helping them to understand the structure of an evening routine and a good night's sleep that will help them succeed the next day. And then we've started a ministry that I know a lot of people are very excited about. There's a lot of buzz around this, and you could be driving down the highway and see it. And
Yes.
What's that ministry, Ann?
So that's our bookmobile ministry, and we are so blessed to have this beautiful bookmobile that can hold thousands, or does hold thousands of books, and visits schools where the kids are identified as having a large percentage of kids who need free and reduced, or qualify for free and reduced lunches. So each kid who visits the bookmobile gets a new book and a used book to take home to keep. It's not a library system. They get to keep it for their very own.
And that's a big deal.
And their teachers help them choose a book on their reading level, and we provide the volunteers and the drivers for the bookmobile. And the bookmobile runs about 3 days a week during the school day.
Yes, and I'm going to say right now, because I'm in process to become a bookmobile driver. But you don't have to be a driver. You can also just volunteer. The crew is like a driver and three others, so a crew of 4 that kind of work together for a half a day and go to the school. And then the teacher works with the kids on helping them pick out the right books, because sometimes they get excited about certain covers, and the teacher helps them get the right book that they can learn and grow in. And I've seen these kids come off the bookmobile holding those books, and they hold them tight.
They do. Yes, they do.
Because for some, it may be the first books they've received in their life.
And they get to choose it.
Oh,
that's really important. It's not something that someone handed down to them that they didn't get to pick. They get to choose it.
That's so great. I just love hearing how you and the whole team are always thinking about dignity and helping these kids and these families feel a sense of care, but also dignity. And otherwise, we move into something that's often referred to as toxic charity, right? Where what we're doing is really just about how we feel about what we're doing. And when we talk about loving our neighbor, and we hope to be a church that really lives into this, we want to become relational with all people. And when we do that, our life is benefited just as greatly as theirs. And it's a partnership, right? That's why we talk about serve trips in that way, where we build partnerships. So it's not a one-time thing, but we build a relationship with a community. And this ministry, and that's part of why I wanted to interview you today, has just been such an amazing local ministry here in the Kansas City area. And I've got to see the impact. I've been there when teachers are receiving care from our teams of volunteers and the bookmobile, and it's just really cool. And I don't know about you, but I grew up in a community, and it's still to this day in most communities, where the schools are the center of the community. Mm-hmm. And if the schools are where people are connecting, and we have an opportunity to connect with those people, that feels like we're doing what God is calling us to do.
And the schools are a safe place for the kids, and that's really important. They may not feel safe at home, but they feel safe at school, and that's a really important piece.
Yes. And I remember in our talk, we were talking about how they even understand the science around reading and literacy, that it's really K1 and 2. Would you speak to that a little bit?
Yes. So when we provide tutors to our partner schools, we focus on kindergarten, first and second grade. That's not to say that we don't provide tutors for other grades, because we do. But the number of jail cells that are available in this country is based on the number of kids who have not achieved reading level by grade 3, have not achieved second grade reading level by grade 3. So they learn to read kindergarten, first and second grade. Generally speaking, if they're successful, then their reading takes off in the third grade, and they are literate. And we really try to focus on those first 3 grades, because we want to produce as many literate kids. We want our efforts to help, but we also want these kids to be warm, and we want them to have a good night's sleep, and we want them to have clean uniforms to wear, and all the other things that feed into this, to give them dignity, to give them the feeling that they can succeed.
I can't help but think about the 25th chapter of Matthew, which says, where did you see me when I was a stranger and you greeted me, when I was sick or in prison and you visited me, when I was hungry and you fed me, when I was thirsty and you gave me water. I know for me, that change every time I read that piece of scripture, and every time I walk into a school environment, or really any environment, when you begin to look at children, you see the face of Christ in every child. Then I know, at least I feel, that I'm growing in my faith, that I'm seeing children as Jesus sees them. And I know as you see them, Ann. And I just appreciate your heart. I appreciate your efforts, and the whole team. I know you just have a team of dozens of volunteers.
Yes, huge team.
But it does take a champion, and I just so appreciate you out there championing this ministry and seeking new ways to get better and to do it better and to make an impact. And so thank you for spending some time with us today just to hear about this. Part of my hope was to invite families to get involved. There's so many ways you can tutor at the schools. You can help stuff backpacks. It's not really backpacks, but you're stuffing plastic bags that go in backpacks full of food, and you're feeding people. And you can get involved with the bookmobile, and you can get involved with other special events. Like in the summer, we still do some of the painting and landscape work and those kind of things.
Write notes to the teachers.
Write notes to the teachers.
Yes.
You can do that from home.
That's
You and your
huge.
kids could do that. What a great project to do together. And all of this you can find at resurrection.church/partner schools. Resurrection.church/partner schools. You will see it like we just mentioned it, almost like a visual for each one, bookmobile and partner, all of it. Bless the teacher. All of it's there, and you can get involved. We'd love to have you involved. And hey, come and be on the bookmobile with me. It'll be a lot of fun. But Ann, is there anything else you'd want anybody to know, or a final word that you might share?
You know, we hardly ever say no. We had a gentleman who came to us and said, I'd like to provide every kid and every teacher in the partner schools with a Dairy Queen dilly bar.
Awesome.
And it was an awesome opportunity. The kids love their dilly bars.
Oh my gosh,
And frequently they're used as rewards for things, but the whole school gets them. So if someone had something to offer, we would love to have it. If they want to offer their time, we need lots of time. We need bookmarks made at home for the books that the kids get. We're really good about utilizing our resources, and we'd love to have more resources.
Oh, that's awesome. And maybe this is inspiring you. And that's part of the intent of the podcast, is to share amazing stories, places and things that inspire us, equip us, and opportunities to make a difference. And that's our hope. And so, Ann, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It's been great to just hear you speak personally about this ministry and what it means for you, because I know it goes all the way back to your own childhood and the excitement of knowing the bookmobile was down the street and the impact that your teachers made on your life. I just really appreciate that. My mother was an educator. She's retired now, but always love educators in every way. So thanks again for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I sure appreciate it.
And thanks for joining us here at the With Parents podcast. We hope you'll worship with us sometime online, on TV, or any one of our 6 locations. You can find out more details at resurrection.church.